I've been working building up countries that are called fragile states, countries that have socio-economic, political, natural disaster problems. So I put back broken countries. That's what I've been doing around the continent.
One of the reasons why we name our show, or this particular show today, Voices, we named it that way because we wanted this channel to be the channel that is the voice of our people.
On the 14th of October 2021, in the southern Cameroon's capital city of Boya, a gendarme officer of the occupation forces of the Cameroon government, during an illegal patrol, shot and killed 5-year-old Caroline Ndiale in the back seat of her grandmother's car while she was on her way to school. A child is killed because a gendarme demanded the paltry sum of 500 francs CFA, less than $1.
I have never really seen Dr. Maggie Kilo, Yaah Maggie Kilo, before, until when she talked about the baby who was killed in Boya, baby Caroline. So that's the first time I listened to her. She was very quick to jump up and speak about that issue, and she spoke about it very boldly. And so I thought that's a very strong new voice coming into our struggle, and I was very interested. And so I want to introduce to you, and I want to welcome you, Dr. Yaah Maggie Kilo, for accepting our invitation to the show.
Thank you, Augusta. It's good to have this chat with you.
Absolutely. Before I continue, I want to clear one thing, because you're not the only Kilo that we know. I think there's another Kilo who is a minister in La Republique. I just want to make sure that people don't think you are that Kilo.
No, I'm not. I'm her older sister. We are family, and we love each other very much. We have different views, but that's what family is about. It's about love, it's about diversity, it's about being together and, accepting to differ. So she's my sister, she's my younger sister, and I love her very much.
No, that's wonderful. I think people definitely can disagree, but family is always number one. And I know that it's a time when our people are divided, but someday we'll come back home. But I can assure you one thing, that she's Ambazonian as any of us, and La Republique knows that.
Absolutely.
Now
I'm just standing on different ground. That's all.
Well, please finish your statement.
No, basically that's that. I mean, she has her views, I have mine, but when there's family, there's blood, there's the connections, and there's the love that flows between us.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. But I can tell you that, La Republique has that tendency to go and get some of the prominent names in our history or in our territory and use them, think that they can use them to cleanse themselves of their evils in our land. But I don't think that's working, because I think it's the same thing they're doing with the Munas and the Kilos and all that. So look, this show is about you, not her. I just wanted to make sure that people don't think that people don't mix the two of you. Now, I want to tell you a little story. The name Kilo itself is very important to me, because I went to primary school in Presbyterian school at Ziri. And I used to walk, when we could not catch Parmonjo's Land Rover and jump at the back, we used to walk from Tamulung and we passed through Kilo. That's one of the very prominent. Our landmarks was you go through Sonak Street, you go through City Chemis, you go through Kilo and Ringway. Then it was the fish pond to Aziri, and so the Kilo family is very, very prominent. And so when I heard you that you were a Kilo, I'm like I have to talk to her.
Very interesting. Yes, I remember that place very well. We stomped the street up Roxy, going up from the. It was a photographer, Charlie Miki, who used to be down the street.
Yes.
And then up we went to Roxy Cinema, and Pa Atanga's house, Paul Nji Atanga's house was just beside there. So,
yes.
And then behind us, it was all the way to Independence Bar and the stadium. So that's small man.
Yes, Independence Bar. Here's what I remember about Independence Bar. We never wanted to go into that bar because we thought it was the bar for carpenters and bricklayers. And because we're in secondary school, we thought we're all that. It's only late that we begin to learn that those are the people who actually build our country. I don't know if you had the same feeling about Independence Bar. There was another bar just near City Chemis.
You had Highland Hotel.
Yes.
That was a big landmark.
Yes.
And then you had City Chemist at the roundabout.
Yes.
As for bars, we're different generations now. My generation grew up with Ringway. It was the place that we went to dance with a live band until we had a new city coming up with the discotheque.
Yes, yes.
But we had for a long time Pierrot. I don't know whether, we had a live band in New City, and the head of the band, after John Gassa,
yes,
Pierrot.
Yes.
So,
yes, those are bands that, when you talk about John Gassa, it reminds me of Lido band in Kumba, and then there was Bali Modern Jazz. Those were bands that used to grow, and I can tell you they did not die a natural death. When La République took over, they started trying to kill our culture by not promoting our music. Let me put it that way, and so that's why they died. But I want to go back to the speech that you made. I want to ask, what motivated you to jump so fast ahead when this child was killed in Boya and spoke so forcefully about it?
Every death at home is painful, but a child's death is very, very painful. It really, and the way baby Caroline died on her way to school on a morning, children just need to go to school. They need to be safe going to school.
Mm-hmm.
And it hit me because I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, I'm a Takumban, being postmenopausal, being in my late 60s. But I also coordinate the women's group of Global Takumban here in the United States. This Global Takumban is all over.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I had just signed on to the Southern Cameroons Alliance. So I felt that in both capacities, I had to say something. And so I just spoke with my heart to the people, explaining the injustice and why it was really critical that we mourn this child, but that we draw international attention to the fact that our children are killed. Going to school, they're killed for 500 francs. 500 francs is less than $1. It really pained me. I didn't sleep the night I heard it, and so I got up in the morning and said, oh my, I have to do something. And that's exactly what my emotions made me do. And I was surprised that people were sending me the, video and going, what is this? And I'm like, the Southern Cameroon Alliance. This is what it is.
Yes, and I think the tragic thing about the story and the sad thing about what you said, even at the time we're mourning, was that this will not be the last.
Definitely not. I mean, we've had babies killed before. And, no child hurts anybody. Babies are babies, children are children. We've got to love them, raise them. So when a gendarme takes a gun and shoots a baby going to school in the morning, over 500 francs bribe, I think it really is just heartbreaking.
Yes.
I honestly, as I tell you, I didn't sleep that night. It happened. I didn't sleep. And for days after that, the nightmares came, and I could feel the mother, feel the father. It was just too bad. Our country has gone down a path that is really very, very sad.
What do you think about the lies that are? I mean, you talked about that she was killed because they were trying to extort from the mother. What do you think about the lies that La Republique and its population is coming up with until they're trying to celebrate that killer as a hero?
You know, these things have been happening in our country for a long time. People have been killed for very little, you know, like impunity, you know, like give me money or I kill you and, you know, you are shot. And our young people, especially with this war that we didn't ask for, you know, when they get killed, when young people get killed, it hurts. It hurts parents, it hurts grandparents like me, it hurts everybody. Because you never know, you cut that child's life short. For what purpose? Why do you kill a child who has their own future? I mean, come kill me if you want. But why are we even killing? You know, we have a situation where it's a political situation, and you take a military solution to apply to a political situation. It is just pathetic. It just means that we are inhuman. We don't have a heart. None of us has created anybody. We just are custodians for God, for humanity. We are, as parents, custodians. Nobody owns another human being. Nobody has the right to take another human being.
Yes, and I think that La Republique is doing all of these things consciously because you do find them lying about them. They were not accidents, and it occurs, and they have all these false narratives that they put to justify why they do these things, because they know that it's a crime. So I don't think it's just us knowing. Now, I have a quick question for you. You know, somebody listening to you now is like, where has she been all this time? What have you been doing? Because this is a voice that I don't know why. Where have you been? I'm sure you have not been sleeping, but I just wanted you to tell us what you have been doing before. Yes, absolutely. I want to know.
I have been, spending my professional life, if that's what you want to talk about. I've been working, building up countries that are called fragile states, countries that have socio-economic, political, natural disaster problems. So I put back broken countries. That's what I've been doing around the continent.
Okay.
I spent my professional life working for an institution on the continent called the African Development Bank, regional development finance institution, and so it finances development projects across the continent. I've been working in there for many, many years. That's what I've been doing.
This struggle has been going on for a very long time, and I'm sure that you haven't been sleeping, and because the way you started speaking up, it's except you're telling us that because of your work you couldn't really speak up, but we need your voice, and I guess that's why I'm longing for it to have been around for a long time. But let me say this about, I did some digging though, so don't think that you're coming without me having gotten some information about you, and let me help my audience understand a little bit about you. Before I do though, your name is Yaah Maggie Kilo. Is Yaah another, is that a name or a title?
It's a title that actually becomes a name.
Okay.
If you belong to the grass fields, the Bamenda area, you know, we call people Mafo in the Gemba area. We call them Maya when you start from Kande coming down through So. So I am a Yaah of the So ethnic group.
Okay.
I was titled by the Fon of the Soul himself, the current Fon of the Soul, in the early days of his fondship. So, and we go through a ritual when you get appointed Yaah or Maya or Mafo.
Okay.
So I am Yaah Maggie Kilo by that.
And I'm sure they don't just title everybody or every woman. I mean, what was the recognition there?
The recognition actually came from the fact that I'm the firstborn daughter of my father because Yaah title is given to a girl child.
Okay.
And I believe, because the Fawn himself told me this, sometimes we doubt our own performance. My dad passed away in 1977, and the Kilo family didn't disappear after Dad passed away. People held it together, and his firstborn child, being me, was recognized as keeping the family together and contributing to the I would say the legacy of my dad, because whenever my dad actually is from Sob village is at the top of the hill. When you leave Nkara and you're going up to Kumbu, you pass Sob village.
Okay.
And together with the Shufai Sob, together with the elders of Sob village and the Buea ethnic group, they recognize that, Kilo died, but the Kilo still remains.
Yes.
And so it's in recognition for the hard work of keeping the family together.
Okay. Yeah. The reason I was talking about title was because I was just going to talk about you and some of the things that I found out about you. You do hold an MA in Sociology of Education from London University Institute of Education, a PhD in International Development Education from Stanford University School of Education. When they say here that you serve your country as an educator and a researcher for many years prior to joining the International Development Committee, did you work in Cameroon for some time?
I did work in Cameroon. Actually, after I had my master's in England and did some teaching courses in America, I went back in 1982 and worked at the Ministry of Education. So there was a research center called the Centre National d'Éducation.
Okay. So
I worked there while teaching English in École Normale. So I was training Francophone teachers in English while working at the Centre National d'Éducation.
Okay. And then they said in 1998, you joined the service of the African Development Bank, where you held several positions in both country operations and policy review. Between 2006 and 2008, you served as the bank's resident representative in Sierra Leone and was later appointed to head the newly established Fragile State Unit. What's Fragile State Unit?
Okay. The Fragile States Unit was actually created in 2008. But something led to that. By 2005, the bank realized that a lot of African countries had actually fallen into conflict and into fragility and were unable, because of sanctions, because of some problems, were unable to actually borrow from the bank, were unable to actually get bank resources. So we began to realize that fragility had several causes and there was a big cause of fragility on the continent of Africa, because most of the majority of fragile states in the world were located on the African continent. In fact, when I became the first head of the Fragile States Unit, we counted 17 fragile states on the continent, and I could count them off the tip of my head. 17. Out of 53 countries at the time, if 17 are fragile, you know that is a loss, because we were trying to meet the Millennium Development Goals. We were trying to, develop the continent, and a lot of these countries were not able to get access to bank resources. So we needed to do something. We needed to help them come out of fragility.
Okay.
It makes sense, right?
Yeah, no, I've never seen a state being described as fragile, but I think from your explanation now, it looks like there were countries that were heading towards being dysfunctional financially. It sounds like it.
Well, there are several reasons for fragility, The first one actually is war, conflict.
Okay.
A lot of the countries that actually fall into fragility are conflict. The second are mismanaged. And the third is that when a country has natural disaster, I take Haiti for one as a country. that has had earthquakes, has natural disasters, and that actually intensifies this fragility. You remember Mozambique had a flood that flooded the country and just basically put the country in a very, very economic disastrous position. So Mozambique became a fragile state because of natural disasters.
Okay. You know, now that you're saying that and you talk about natural, you know, I was watching a video today, and there was this Cameroonese who was standing by the side of the road with a whole pile of garbage and a whole swamp in the name of a road, and everybody was tiptoeing around. He was decrying the situation and saying that this is not only that this was happening in Yaoundé and in every neighborhood in Yaoundé. So when you talk about Cameroon, in a way, it's a fragile state, would you say?
It's a fragile state for two reasons. The first one is the mismanagement, the economic mismanagement.
Okay.
And then the second reason is the current crisis. You know, Cameroon is fighting several wars on several fronts, not just on our side, on southern Cameroon side, but in fighting Boko Haram in the north, and then to the east you have, you know, the crisis from Centrafrique flowing into Cameroon. So we've got a state of fragility there, and I think that the worst one is the mismanagement of the economy. The wars are not as bad.
Okay.
The mismanagement of the economy coupled with the wars puts Cameroon in a very, very fragile.
Okay, so in August 2011, you were transferred from the temporary relocation agency of the African Development Bank in Tunisia to Monrovia, Liberia, as resident representative of the African Development Bank in Liberia, a position which you held until your retirement in 2017. Now, there's one here that I also noted. It says His Excellency President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf awarded you a Liberian's highest non-national civilian medal, Dam Commander in the most venerable order of knighthood of the pioneers of the Republic of Liberia. that is quite something, isn't it?
It is something because, oh Lord, I have a certificate and I have the medal. I have a large medal, a medium medal, and a small medal.
Wow.
The small medal I can wear every day if I chose, but the medium-sized medal sort of hangs on my chest, and the big one, which is, you know, heavy gold, I can wear on my neck, around my neck. So it's a big honor for me because I spent 6 years in Liberia in total, and you would recall it was also during the 2 years of Ebola, the Ebola epidemic. So I think President Sirleaf, whom I admire so much, and I was really, really fortunate to work with as the first female president in Africa and also Nobel Peace Prize laureate 2011. I really feel fortunate, and my heart is always with Mama Liberia.
Absolutely. It's a whole career to be proud of, and as you've been talking, I've been thinking, you are very, very prepared with your ability to handle disaster, with your ability to have all this international experience. That you're very, very prepared to be part of this struggle, and I can think that you have a lot to bring because there's definitely the experience, there's definitely the international experience, there's definitely experience in managing disasters. I'm going to let you say how your career now prepares you for this kind of work.
When I was actually living my professional life, I never saw myself in this kind of a role that I'm trying to play today. I saw Cameroon as one of the places that was, you know, peaceful. My only disappointment was the elections outcome, that we were having the same person in power for a very long time, and I could tell that it was going to give room for a lot of problems, but I didn't know that those problems were going to come knocking at my people's door, because I'm a southern Cameroonian in my heart, in the way I was raised, and in everything I do, I'm a Southern Cameroonian first before being of the bigger country, Cameroon. And so, in my being a Southern Cameroonian, going into Cameroon, that is, I felt was my second country, I didn't feel welcome at all. And so my experience with us in that global Cameroon has not been a very good one. But that didn't take the Southern Cameroons out of me. I always identify, how you go into Yaoundé and the first day you open your mouth to speak and you say Langlola, that hit me very bad. And I felt I did not feel welcome in Yaoundé. I'm sorry to say, I had been brought up in a different kind of country. In the Southern Cameroon, things were easy. You knew who you were, you knew who you were dealing with. But getting into Yaoundé, I was totally lost. Because from high school, from CAS, I spent my life, educational life abroad. And to come and work in an environment where you were not welcome because you were Anglola, you were Anglophile, you were Anglocon, you were not accepted. And the worst part of it was that your diploma was not accepted. It was actually, you had to go through what they call equivalence. And they diminished the value. I felt they diminished the value of my education because it was always, the argument they gave you was that too many Anglophones have master's degrees, doctorate degrees, There is no way that so many people can be master, doctor, and all of this stuff. But how that prepared me for what I am is very interesting. I first of all worked in Yaoundé, and when in the 1980s, Cameroon was very prosperous. By the time that Ahidjo was passing the baton over to Buea, which he shouldn't have, he should have actually allowed the other side of the country then to take power. But that is neither here nor there. I began to see some things that were in the landscape that told me we were going to have problems. Because my education has been very privileged. I went to England to study, University of London, came to America, studied at an Ivy League institution, with a full scholarship, found my way working in the World Bank. Then going back to work in the African Development Bank, I saw that on the kind of life that I was going to live in Cameroon, I would never be able to give my children the kind of education that I had. And so that pushed me out of the country. And then when I came out of the country into America for the second time, because I had lived in America in the early 80s, coming back in the late 80s to go do a PhD, I realized that there was a push factor out of the country. A lot of people were leaving. So what was pushing people out of the country? It was opportunity. We did not have opportunity in the country. And I thought I could go back and provide opportunity for people. Then I realized, no, I'm going to be discriminated against as an Anglophone. My education at Stanford is going to be devalued again. I have opportunity to go do what I have, practice what I have studied in other countries. So I chose to be a global citizen. And then when I went into these institutions, I said, okay, I am in here, World Bank, let me see. I prefer to live on African soil. I was coming to America to go back home. But I needed that exposure to the continent to make the value of my education. And so I just lived on the continent and, until I retired. That's what I did. I loved the job. It exposed me to other parts of Africa that I would never have lived in or visited. So that's just it. I just got a passion for, rebuilding, building. My father was a builder, by the way. So.
Yes. Okay, now that you ended with your father, let me tell you another thing I know about your dad. Every time I look at the American Postal Service, I always think of your dad. And I imagine what he could have been today, or what the Postal Service in Ambazonia Southern Cameroons at the time could have become. Because what was happening in the Southern Cameroons was that they were building indigenous institutions, indigenous industries. I listened to this Mbayu who was talking in Bamenda. He was trying to downplay the fact that we were building from the ground up, and he was saying, "Oh, go and look at how many schools are there now. They were not there." I just looked at the man, and I'm like, you have been dominated by international institutions. They've taken over your country. You're working for them. They're treating you like a baby, and you don't see that you need to build your own and own it. And that is what the Southern Cameroons was doing. And I know your dad was. I just knew that he, Che, Kilo, Nanga, those were very prominent business people. And so when we're growing up, we're trying to know what these people do. And I know your dad was our mailman, if I can put it that way. Before you say anything about that, I want to... Yeah, go ahead, please.
No, I'm saying you were in Bamenda. That's why you saw Kilo Brothers mail service in Bamenda.
Yes.
Nanga was doing the exact same thing in the southern zone, not that.
Yes.
In the southern region of our country. So, and they were best friends. Yeah.
See, we knew each other in that town, and you were talking about it's a big city, but it's like a neighborhood, and that's why people think that they can just tear us apart. It is very difficult. But I want to go back to something you said, and I want to thank you for sharing your educational experience in La République du Cameroon. When you talk about going back and devaluing your certificate, I would start that when I went to Yaoundé the first time, because I went to university in the first year. And I've shared this story with my audience who have been watching me for a long time, that when you went there, it is not only the system that tells you that you are not wanted. Somehow the system has educated even the most common citizen on the street to treat you like you're a little piece of shit. But we were coming from a superior culture, a more advanced political people, and we met with people who Gojitinka says are primitive politically, and who have been assimilated by the French, and yet they were looking at us like we were those that needed help, and they were telling us off. You sit in the class and some francophone drops or tips and fall, they shout Anglo. I don't know if you experienced that, but that is the resentment that they build not only with our peasants, if I may use that word, but also with the intellectuals, which is why right now they're saying every Anglophone is an Ambazonian. Of course. There's another thing that you talked about. You talked about that every Anglophone is either a master's or a PhD. Of course, when you don't give them jobs in the place, what do you expect? We leave the place and look for opportunities somewhere. And when you go into those other countries, the best place to start is just continue your education. And that's why when they come to destroy it, we say no. There are two very big things that we inherited from the British. The British did not build our country the way the Germans did. But one of the things they did was that they provided us, they used our system and adapted to actually create a very good legal system for us and a very good educational system. And so after you've stolen everything, when you now come to steal our education and miseducate our children and bring injustice by bringing what they call, what is their law called? I just call it a command law. We will fight. And that is why we are in a war today. So thanks for sharing that. I'm sure a lot of our people listening to that, it doesn't matter their level of education, they would definitely agree with you.
Thank you very much. For education, I think that the value that our parents placed on education and its transformative quality, it cannot be replaced. And I am glad to see that our people struggle hard to maintain the quality of education that we have. It's one of the things that has been dismantled so badly that I cry for the quality of education that I see at home at the moment. Mm-hmm. Our children leave university And I don't think that they have the same level of educative material that we came out of high school with. And so one of the things that we really need to fix when we get our country back is to make sure that the quality of education is really highly improved, and it puts value into every single type of education, so that every education, every skill you acquire is valuable for you, for the person who acquires it. You know, you talk about the schools. I see that we had a meritocracy. Mm-hmm. You were saying it, but you really didn't use the word that I would use. That you went to school, and schooling, you met people who were of your level, meaning that, you know, it was by merit that you got the education that you had. A child got the education that they needed for the type of brain quality that they had. So it was a meritocracy that brought out the best in you. Had nothing to do with what class of society you came from, what your parents were, etc. People take education now. You see the bribe, you know, teachers asking for bribes for grades. You know, our doctors, you know, could come out of school and not be quality doctors because they don't get the education they deserve. They go into institutions by paying bribes, and then you don't get the quality of professional that you merit. And I can tell you that one of the reasons why a lot of our government officials actually have a headache and their medevac, you evacuate them into Europe and other countries to be treated, is because they've so devalued our education that they don't trust, you know, the professionals of our own system.
Yes.
So instead of actually getting the students who merit the positions to be there, to use their education, you know, naturally at the best, to come out the very best, they just muddy the waters, and then they themselves don't want to be treated by the same people that they devalued. You know, they don't want to, you know, and it applies to every single profession, not just to medical field.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
when you're a good lawyer, I mean, look at the Bodidinkas, you know, the Luke Senzes, you know, these people, you know, and now somebody will say they're a lawyer, or there are people who go about even impersonating lawyers. I saw a video too of somebody who was in court with an outfit, but they were caught for not being a lawyer. So, you know, the respect for the profession and for education, and especially for teachers, is so been diluted in our society that we really need a restoration, not just of our independence, but also of our institutions, of our culture, and of our values.
Absolutely. And it's not only the poor education, it's also the irrelevance of the education. Because I remember I told you we used to go to Aziri. Aziri at the time had what they used to call manual art. In that manual art center, we used to learn carpentry, we used to learn all kinds of trade. So that if you came out of school and you did not go to college or you didn't go for further education, you have a trade. At least at that point, you start having a good sense of what you like and don't like. So yeah, we've definitely been damaged. It took us way too long to fight back, but we are fighting back. And in this fighting back, I see you came really prepared, because I also understand that you were in Toronto last week. Tell us what happened in Toronto.
Oh, you know, this conversation could go on forever. I was actually going to talk a little bit about that education bit where everybody in school learned a little bit of everything.
Okay.
Before I talk about Toronto, let me talk about that first. When you went to school, you got a needle and thread. You learned to stitch. You learned to do a little bit of cookery. You learned to do a little bit of carpentry. You learned to do farm. It meant that you came up.
Yes, we had a farm. We had a farm.
You had a school farm.
Yes, there was.
Farm actually fed the children on some days of the year.
Yes.
They harvested the school farm and they cooked food so the children ate. What that did to every single child is that you value every single trade. The farmer is valued, the carpenter is valued, the seamstress is valued, the cleaner is valued, because we were cleaning our classrooms ourselves, fetching water, molding blocks to build the additional parts of the school.
Yes.
And so you value every profession, and you have respect for the person who comes out of school and becomes a carpenter. You have respect for the person who decides they're going to do farming. So that is the value of education that you put into everything and every aspect of our life.
You know, what you just described is what happens in the United States. Exactly what happens in the United States. And so, I don't know if that was your experience, but I came from Africa to the United States, and I met students who were rounded in every field. There were a few fields that I was specialized in and even did better, but no, in terms of being rounded, these students knew everything more than we did. In fact, I'll tell you something and this is just one, okay? And when the principal of CPC Bali was here one time, I told him that. I said, when you go back, please institute typing in school. Let our students learn to type. Because when you come abroad, you realize that those are some very basic skills you do not have. And you don't write your papers by pen. And so we spent a lot of money paying typists, looking them from midnight to type our papers that are due in the morning. And so it's like you said, we can talk about this for forever, and every sentence will be a revelation that we need to change what we have back there, because we're not educating ourselves. We're not being competitive in the world. And you see, in La République, the government there represents foreign governments. I'm going to say it very loud and clear, and they know that. And so until the citizens of La République take their country back, there will just be a farm for French to dump their manufactured products, their poorly manufactured products, and it becomes a farm to come and mine their minerals, which are in codified laws. So what Ambazonia is trying to do is, we have owned our country before, so nobody can come and tell us that what they're doing there is what is. No, we know better.
It's not only France that is doing the dumping. I think the biggest dumper in La République right now is China. You know, when you go to a market to buy, say, electricity cables or switches, something for your house, they ask you, you want the one that is shipped from China, or you want the one that is probably made from other parts of the world. So I think that the French have handled the dumping. They're just exploiting now, taking out, but the dumping is actually being done by the Chinese.
Yeah, but we are in the process of fixing it, and I'm glad that even you who have spent your life working all over the world, when you really should be resting now, you are choosing to come back and be part of the future.
Well, they call me retired but not tired. So yes, I am retired. You know, my children look at me and say, "Oh, mommy, you should be resting." But look at me. Do I look like I'm tired?
No, absolutely not. I see you very energetic.
So I will give whatever it takes, so that actually the reason why I'm in the struggle is the same reason why I did not like, going back to Cameroon when I finished my college. I found that I could not change the country internally.
Mm-hmm.
I could not give promise to the people that I saw trying to come out of Cameroon in droves. And so the struggle for me is about actually providing promise and hope for our people. Because you've seen the 60 years that we've been an independent country, and yet our children don't have promise, they don't have opportunity, and that is what I want to bring. I'm struggling so that our people can have opportunity and promise.
Yes. So I want you to share your experience in Canada. And I want you to share that because, there's some controversies going on right now. Obviously, not everybody is celebrating it, but I just thought, you went there with definitely a more experienced eye and an eye which is, I want to use the word mature, but then if I use it, then I'll be being condescending to a lot of the other mature people who were there. So but share with us, please.
So yes, I went to Canada wearing several hats, as you're aware.
Mm-hmm.
I am currently a member of the advisory board to the CBN. So, for instance, when the CBN undertakes activities, they come to the advisory board, they explain to the advisory board members what they are about to do,
Mm-hmm.
and they get inputs, they get questions, we will give them advice. And then I also went, I guess, in my capacity as coordinator of Global Cameroon, which is a women's movement. So I do try to make communication to reinforce the female voice, the women's voice in those kinds of meetings. So that I sat there in those two capacities. And I actually was one of those who really commended the CBN for organizing those meetings. Because from my vantage point, from where I sit normally, where I look at the world and look at our struggle, at the point where most countries are at this level, where they are trying to bring the divergent groups to actually begin to discuss and prepare for negotiation, that kind of work is I've never seen it before, done by an internal group, by the stakeholders themselves. The CBN members are all Southern Cameroonians like me, so they all are, our peers. Whereas where I've seen that kind of work done, especially in the case of countries like the West African countries, where it was a country like Nigeria that was their champion that said, okay, you guys come together and, we need to come together so that you can begin to talk peace. Even though these were groups that were talking peace among themselves. It wasn't like, you come talk peace so that we can go talk peace with another country. Like the case of South Sudan, I would say the South Sudan were actually brought together by the World Council of Churches, by people like that helped them to come together so they can actually have a group that could then negotiate with the Sudanese, with the people of Khartoum. So you had the people of Juba who were coming together now, the different factions coming together to go sit at a table where they would be looking at their Sudanese, North Sudan, people face to face to negotiate whether they get together to remain as a country or they split. So that is the journey that we basically started. And for these, our brothers and sisters, to have contributed to make this meeting, for me, that is very, very critical, because it's the beginning of a long journey. It doesn't stop here. We're going to be meeting again. We're going to have to come together, because right now we are still working on the resolutions from the meeting. Tomorrow the Takumbans are meeting to examine their own resolutions and make their own statement, because, the women are very strong in this, Okay. The women want peace, we don't want more Carolines dying. We don't want our sons, our daughters dying in Cameroon or being killed by La République in a war that we never really called for. So we want to see the war end. Yeah.
I'm going to ask you this, and please keep your answer short, because I have another important question for you. I think when we're talking about peace right now, and that same day we're meeting and talking about peace in Toronto, La République du Cameroon was killing our citizens all over the place. I hear that they're ordering, they've purchased, or they've been given, I don't know, drones which they will now start using against our people. So when we're emphasizing negotiations with our people, when the other side with who we should be negotiating or are anticipating to negotiate are enforcing war on us, there's some conflict there, isn't it?
You will see that when La République started the war, it was going to last about 3 months, right?
Yeah, 2 weeks actually.
2 weeks, 3 months. Now it's 5 years and counting. So the issue of war and peace is actually something that when you start a war, you never know how it goes. That's the one thing that it's the one decision that La République du Cameroon took that they're probably regretting now. Because for them, this was just something that it was a walk in the park. They were gonna just finish with these people and we would be done, and then they would enslave us much further. But look at us here. So they have no control they can't stop this war. It has to only stop at negotiation. And they've passed the threshold where they could say it's an internal affair. If you were in Toronto with me, you would have seen the international community. The observers were lined in the back of the room every time we had an open meeting. We had close meeting among ourselves only, but we had meetings where the international community came in and they observed us. And, oh my goodness, there were Canadians, British, Irish, there were so many of them in the room. I was pleasantly surprised.
Okay.
So if La République started this war thinking that it was a walk in the park and they could turn the tap off and on and off like they chose, no more. So peace will only come through negotiation.
Yes. Let me just say this, and then I would want to change the topic. I read the memoir of a British soldier who came to the southern Cameroons at the time when they were organizing the plebiscite. And obviously they knew what was happening in La République, and they actually met some of the fighters. And what was interesting for me that this soldier entered in his memoir was that part of the reason why La République won that war against the Bassas and the Bamenda was because they were not armed. That if you went and you saw the nationalists who were fighting back, they had no arms. And he said if they had arms, they would have defeated La République. And so La République had a walk in the park there. And I think when they were coming to Ambazonia, before I say when they were coming to Ambazonia, let me say this. I heard Thibault Nash in an interview said that the reason some of what is happening now is happening because the people who, he did not say it this way, but that was the implication, that the people who have ruled La République from the beginning are the same people ruling now, and therefore there has been no opportunity for change of mentality, change of personality. There has been no new blood coming. And so you see, I'm really working hard not to use words here. And so you see people still practicing in 2021 what they practiced in 1960, and there is no doubt that the results will not be the same. And I think they already know now that the Ambazonians they were not prepared, but within a very short time, I think La République is right now, after 5 years, getting drones from Slovenia, and it would not be too long before they realize that that's not the weapon. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but I want to definitely listen to your quick comment and then go to another role which you've been playing, which I'm very, very interested in hearing what you have to say about that.
I'll just say two quick things. The first one is our joining a country, uniting or coming together with a country that was at war. That was a very bad sign for us at the very beginning. We should not have joined La République de Cameroon that was killing its own citizens in a war. The Bassas and the Bamenda were being slaughtered when we joined that country.
It wasn't our choice, though. It wasn't our choice. It wasn't our choice.
We didn't have the choice. But
yes.
If our forefathers had known, if our fathers had known that the Bamenda and the Bassas, were not going to be treated well, we shouldn't have gone there, because the next people they turn the guns are on us. But let me say the second thing is that we have been at war with La République. This war of assimilation has been going on for a very long time.
Yes.
From since the 60s when we joined them. And that war was not a bloody war. It was just a war of dismantling all the institutions that we had in place. So all our infrastructure, All our institutions of government, our legal and cultural institutions were done away with. And the last thing they were trying to do was to do away with our legal institutions now, the lawyers, the law, and the education system. And that is where our people said, enough. You've come very far, but you're not going to step this one. Because you remember the GCE board, there was a war about that. But, we lost a few students. We managed to maintain the GCE board and kept the exam going. But guess what? Like you say, they copied us. They have their own whatever board now, and they're doing exactly what they were trying to get us not to do, right?
Yes.
So we really shouldn't have been in that kind of a relationship. Hopefully, we will get our country back. We will fix it for our children and our grandchildren. I am in this struggle to make sure our children and our grandchildren have a country that works for them. Not about me, not about us, about them. Our children and grandchildren, your children, mine, our children back home who are being killed. The last thing I want to say very quickly is that when the war began, honestly, it broke my heart to see how our children were being killed on the streets. I never saw people's brains blown out like that. They had the weapon. We had what? Catapults, stone sticks, then guns. And God alone knows if our voices in the bushes, as my brother Paul Njiakana said, if our voices in the bushes had not protected us, we wouldn't be even talking negotiations.
Yes.
So I give honor and power, glory. I pray every day. My mom and I were praying every day for those boys who are actually defending us. Because had they had their 3 months and run us over, we would also be in the position of the Bamilikins and the Basas in Cameroon today.
Or even worse.
Position.
Yes,
we would be an even worse position. So I give glory to those boys who have defended us with their lives. May God bless them. May God keep them defending us. Yeah.
The other role that I do know that you've also accepted is that you are the vice chairman of the Southern Cameroons Alliance. The Southern Cameroon Alliance is an organization which is not very well known quite yet. But obviously you know enough about it to be its vice chairperson. So I'd like you to first of all tell us, why is the alliance relevant 5 years after the struggle, or 5 years after what you just described has happened? Why is the alliance relevant? And then maybe you can also help us tell us what really attracted you to it. And I'm saying this because you do have other organizations that are sitting out there and they're making all kinds of claims.
Okay, so you want me to first talk about the alliance and then I'll talk about why I'm in it?
Absolutely, absolutely. We want to know a little more about the alliance.
So the alliance actually is not just another group. It is an alliance. So there are many, many different groups in, and I can see that other groups are joining the alliance.
Okay.
Now, the one thing I learned about conflict is that no country actually, unless they are preparing for war over a period, like the Greeks used to do or the Romans used to do, they'll take a year to plan that they will go fight a war there because they want territory or they want something.
Mm-hmm.
This war came on us very suddenly, so we were not prepared.
Okay.
Now, what does that mean? It means that people have been learning as we go on.
Okay.
Time, that factor time, has actually educated people about the war, and they've seen now the mistakes that we've made along the way.
Okay.
So the alliance comes together as a family that have like minds because they see the mistake that we've made, and they're coming together to try and correct this mistake. You see? And I don't want to, because if I go into the mistakes now, I will not really be able to answer your other questions.
No, I want you, give me one though. I'd like to hear one of the mistakes that you think have really been made, because I think a lot of people have been talking about mistakes that have been made out there. And I can name some. So I'd like to hear you actually mention one.
Okay, I'll just talk about one.
Yes.
For instance, you hear the IG, you hear interim government, you hear government.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the way the international, and that's where my background comes in, and I'll really talk. When internationally you become a government, when you are a country, if you are a revolutionary movement, you have them. You have the SWAPO, you have the PLO organization, but they never call themselves a government until you look like the South Sudan. They became a government when they got their flag recognized and installed in the United Nations. So the Security Council actually gives you that sovereignty. You put your flag there. You call your country whatever name you want to call it. We will call us Ambazonia or Southern Cameroons or whatever we want to call it. We will have all the trappings of statehood, and that makes us a country, and we have a government recognized by everybody. Now imagine me, I'm a government of Southern Cameroon. I'm the president of Ambazonia or whatever, and I go to talk to another government to say, help me fight my war. It's going to be very difficult for that government to actually come and help you fight or come and do whatever for you, because when they do that, it means that they recognize you as a government. So it will be very difficult. That's a mistake that we've made. We created a government, or we created governments, and we expect other governments that have sovereignty in the family of governments that support each other to come now and support us. If we are a movement heading somewhere, then they can support us knowing that they are free to do so. We are not claiming to be a government because we are not recognized by the Security Council of the United Nations. The day we will be recognized and we negotiate our way, that is where we say UN mandated negotiation, UN mandated peace agreement, UN mandated. Once we use that and the UN gives us that mandate, they create a pole for us in the United Nations where our own flag and our own country will be. We will sing our anthem. They will declare a day that is our day of the birth of the nation of, and then other countries will enter the family of countries. We enter that brotherhood of the United Nations, of the African Union. But unless we do that, it will be very difficult for any country to come out and say, we support, we recognize the president of Amazon or the president of Southern Africa. We cannot do it. Right.
Wow. So we went into the struggle with one hand tied in a way. That's what you're saying.
Yes. So it became, that's why a lot of countries said it was an internal affair of the government of Liberia. They don't see us as a separate country trying to fight a war of independence against an occupier. It's very difficult to sell that narrative to the rest of us.
But so what you're saying is that we can have friends who can help us, and we can have friendly governments, but if we are calling ourselves a government, then that prevents them from...
We are on par with them, and we've usurped something that has not been given to us.
Okay.
We are not legal. But when the UN declares, then we are legal. So that's a mistake we've done, and we're trying to correct that. So we are an alliance, we are not a government, and we do things. So we're trying to correct these mistakes. There are others, but I'll leave it at that, because I know that you have other questions for me.
Now that you're saying it, I think the disadvantage of forming governments is not only what you just stated in terms of international help, but it's also it's also the politics that begin to play with the war on the ground. Because if you go down in the territory, our fighters are divided. Our fighters, if you ask them, they're fighting La République. But if you go, you see that they're in factions because they're different factions playing politics with that struggle.
Absolutely.
So now, from what you explained, it seems to me that the alliance saying that we want to free ourselves of this burden in order to pursue the diplomacy. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, so the diplomacy part is the big part, because we want to appeal to other countries to be able to get into that family of nations. We have to get a vote. And the more we can go out and appeal, it's just like, countries of Southern Africa, countries that actually had their independence later in the 70s and 80s, they had to go out and appeal to other countries. And then when the countries support your movement, your liberation organization, PLO, Palestinian Liberation Organization, SWAPO or whatever, when these nations support your movement for independence or whatever, then you can appeal through them, get their support. But if you come as a government, you are on par with them, and they cannot openly recognize.
All right, I have one other question for you, because knowing our people and knowing this so-called governments that you're just describing, they are going to come fighting back. So how does the alliance respond? Because they're not going to just they're not going to see the sense in what you are saying, because they are right now very politicized, and they have politicized our people, and so it's become a very, very difficult situation. How are you going to? And have you heard of what they call is it a blue or white army? Have you heard that?
Well, I am going to see, this is my profession. I've worked with countries, I've worked in institutions where governments are members, not individuals. Mm-hmm. So I know what I'm talking about because of my experience. Let me ask you a question. Mm-hmm. The governments that we have in place today, what has been their accomplishment making us friends with other governments? Have you seen them go out and any country come and recognize the government of so and so person?
No, but that's not their concern, though. No matter how reasonable or sensible or factual it is, they're going to fight you because, like I already said, to them it's a political game now.
With the Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Tanzania, you can see our mothers there. The T-shirts they have started distributing the T-shirts. As you can see, some of them are already putting it on. You can see our mama there struggling to put on her own T-shirt. You can see in front of us here, some of our people, the distribution is currently going on. And I want to believe that everybody will have it, because the population here is not yet out that much, because many of them went for distribution. Red Cross is doing distribution today, and many went to collect money that Red Cross is distributing. So you are going to get updates later. So we can't continue waiting for them to come, because it is almost getting to 4 p.m. here, and activities have to begin. Thank you, the Federal Republic of Tanzania.
If you look at the refugees in Nigeria, you see Sako putting his banners there when they send food.
He has a banner, yeah.
So I'm just picking that one because it's just a clear example. Because he is not going to take it lying down. Joe Ayaba, who is obviously calling himself the leader of the Ambazonian Revolution, is not going to suddenly say, oh, the whole time we're wrong, now we've seen the daylight, alliance, go ahead, do some diplomacy. Or they're not going to change themselves and suddenly say, we are not a government anymore, we are something different. It's not going to change. So how prepared is the alliance for such a reaction?
Okay, I'm not really worried about how prepared the alliance is to react to that. I am speaking out of my own professional experience. I have learned this stuff not only in school, but on working on the ground. I know how countries relate to one another, and what I'm saying is the brutal truth. I cannot come to my people and tell a lie and keep them waiting for things to happen when they will never happen because of the quagmire in which we are. What I said, and very humbly said, we made some mistakes by forming a government too early. You form a government, but nobody will give you a chair around the table of government unless you follow the rules. There are very strict rules in the international community about how you go about these things. I want to be recognized. I don't declare myself. I allow them to declare me. I put myself at their, and I ask nicely, and they will declare you when they're ready, when you meet the criteria. If you don't meet the criteria, if they don't mandate it, You are out. It's not me who made the rules. I'm only humbly putting my information that I know, because the lives and the destiny of 8 million Southern Cameroonians is at stake.
Okay.
I cannot lie. It's about our children dying for nothing. I want to give them hope. In giving them hope, I must tell the truth. I cannot say I support a government when I know that that government will not result in anything.
Okay. And I'm going to round this up. And I want you to, because, you know, like I just said, these people contribute their money. Our citizens in the diaspora contribute their money, gives them to this middleman, and the middlemen take the money and play politics with. So without our citizens in the diaspora, these people will not be so empowered. So what's your advice to the citizens in the diaspora who are falling for some of these con games that you're describing?
See, people have the choice to do whatever they want. If you want to give your money to somebody, you can go ahead and give your money to that somebody. But me, before I will give my money to anybody, I will know that it is being used for the purpose it was intended, and I will ask you for accountability to show me proof that that money was used for the purpose it was intended. If you choose to give your money so somebody can live lavishly, that is your choice. But if it's about the independence that we are seeking, there is a way that you go to seek independence. And you don't declare yourself independent, because if you do that and you claim to give yourself all the things that make you independent, but you don't have the independence, nobody's going to invite you to the UN one day. Nobody's going to invite you to join the African Development Bank one day, or the World Bank, or get money from the IMF, or get all these things that are the joys of membership. You enjoy membership when you do things correctly, and you become a South Sudan that was not a country recently. Until 2011, South Sudan became the 55th country of Africa. So how do you then became the 54th country of Africa? We are going to be number 55 if we play our games right, if we play by the rules. And just declaring ourselves a country doesn't make us a country.
All right. Thank you. Let me add, I promise this is the last question.
You can go ahead and ask me any question you like. If I can answer, I will answer honestly.
I mean, you have a lot of experience, so when I have this opportunity to draw that information from you and enlighten our people, I think I should. And we do need to, when our people speak, they always wish the shortest struggle. So this is proper. Is it possible for Ambazonians to become the country they want without international support?
It's going to be very difficult. They can become the country they want within the Republic of Cameroon if they can. I don't know how that will happen, because Cameroon has its own idea of the country that it wants Ambazonia to be under it. But if they want to become an internationally recognized UN mandated country, they've got to follow them.
Okay. Well, what I was trying to find out is, can we succeed without some of the international cooperation that you're talking about?
No. The diplomacy is important. You have to have relations with other countries. The family. You cannot come into my family if I don't allow you, if I don't do the adoption papers. It doesn't work. No.
All right. Doctor, I really appreciate you taking the time. I'm sure this is not my last interview, because it seems to me that you have a lot to educate our people, because you've worked in the system, you've worked in the UN system, and you've related with a lot of countries. And I think that we've tried winging it. That's what I call what we've been doing for the past 5 years. We've tried winging it. I think we need to start doing something different now, because our boys on the ground have proven that they can fight. I think what has been missing is the kind of support that they need from us abroad, and some of what Dr. Kilo is talking about. So I just felt like I jump in and bring you on to come and share your experiences and your wisdom. And I really appreciate you for taking the time to talk to us. It's quite a long piece.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and I look forward to having more chats like this with you. It was very interesting. You asked some very good questions. And I hope that in my sincerity and my humility, and, if I don't know something, I'll tell you I don't know. If I know, I will emphasize that this is the way it is. You can go look it up in the books, okay?
All right.
I hope we have a chance again to have this chat. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.